Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke is coming out swinging just days before his Senate confirmation hearing for a second term. Bernanke penned an op-ed in the Washington Post arguing against proposed regulations that would strip the Fed of a lot of its power. Bernanke says the measures would, quote, would seriously impair the prospects for economic and financial stability in the United States, unquote, close quote. Further, he says a plan by Representative Ron Paul to audit the Fed would undermine the confidence the public and the markets have in the Fed. Let's turn to Congressman Ron Paul, who joins us now on the phone. Sir, you know, I read this op-ed that he wrote, and it struck me as saying, you know, he said at one point, you know, we made a lot of mistakes, but don't strip us of any of our power. Are we making a mistake if we leave the Fed intact with as much power as they do have over the banking system?
A huge mistake. It's been a mistake for a long time. The Fed creates the bubbles. They've had complete license to do whatever they want, especially since 1971, no restraints. They have power to collude with other governments and other central banks, and they created this financial crisis. And he claims that they're rescuing and making things better, but he takes no responsibility for causing all the problems. So I think it's a hoax for him to talk about financial stability. If I know what they're doing, or the people know, or the Congress knows that there'll be financial instability, I mean, how could it get much worse?
Well, Congressman, he does say one paragraph in that op-ed that the Federal Reserve, like other regulators around the world, did not do all that it could have to constrain excessive risk-taking in the financial sector, and on and on and on. But when you mentioned the colluding, you should also mention some of the private banks, the Goldman Sachs and so forth of the world, that a lot of the public feel that the Fed was looking out for them more than for the general public. Then who do we trust here? We're going to have lawmakers, Congress. There's not much trust in Congress either. So this power is going to be in your hands?
No, I just don't think you should trust the system of money. Any country that permits a secret organization or a Congress to print money out of thin air, I wouldn't trust any one of them. And that's, of course, why money ought to be a commodity, and it should be determined in the marketplace. I mean, that's what free markets are all about, and sound money is all about, not to have an inflation machine. So, no, it's impossible to come up and say, oh, yes, let Congress print the money, don't let the Fed. But you're absolutely right about the secrecy and who benefits. This is the whole problem, is that companies like Goldman Sachs did benefit, and we're not even allowed to find out who got the money. Trillions of dollars. We don't know who got the money, and they just sort of thumb their nose at us and say, we're not going to tell you. You take them to court, and they just flaunt the courts, and they have all these high-powered attorneys that are paid for by, money they print. Right. So it's endless. I mean, but this is a predictable result of setting up the Federal Reserve in the first place. But it got really out of hand since 1971, and finally the big bubble came, and the big bubble burst. So the financial crisis is here, and they can't inflate their way out of it, and that's what they're trying to do.
So, sir, then what's the answer to this? I mean, to Rebecca's point, if you give Congress regulatory control over the Fed, well, that's not going to make anybody happy because nobody trusts what Congress does. So is the answer just to abolish the Fed?
Well, the Fed will probably abolish itself. The fallacy here is that if you have anybody printing money and setting interest rates, and the Fed has been doing this is artificial. It's bad information. It causes all the malinvestment and the excessive debt. So the assumption is made in all of Washington right now, and probably everybody in the Congress except a few, that only if we'd have had more regulation. So the debate is a distraction. Should the Fed regulate, or should the Congress regulate to prevent these problems? But they're not dealing with the source of the problem. The source of the problem is the monetary inflation, the monetary mischief, the artificially low interest rates. So regulations can't prevent these consequences.
But Congressman, stay on that point for a minute. Are you saying that the Fed should not have monetary policy jurisdiction at all? I mean, because there's an argument to be made that, yeah, there should be a Fed, and they should be able to raise and lower interest rates. They just shouldn't have so much control over the banking sector as far as how much they should hold on account, et cetera. So you're saying no Fed at all?
No, I argue for getting rid of the Fed. My position isn't that we close it in one day, but I would legalize competition. I would legalize the Constitution, because the Constitution still says that you can deal in gold and silver. But if you do that and try to transact transactions, you can go to jail for it. So, no, it's a monopoly. It's a cartel. It serves special interests, serves the big banks. It serves people like Goldman Sachs. It finances deficits. That's the greatest harm is although Congress is up in arms right now because the people are up in arms, Congress for decades have been benefiting by this because they don't have to act responsibly. They can fight wars they shouldn't be fighting, and they finance it through inflation. And the liberals run up huge deficits for the welfare state. Oh, the Fed will take care of it until it comes to an end. And what we have to realize, it's come to an end.
Congressman Ron Paul, thank you very much for joining us once again for Happy Hour.